Awake living into uncharted territory together, accelerating your wellness path, plus your interconnectivity at the same time. It's not your grandma's Ayurveda, but it kind of is. It's the Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Kate Stillman.
Hello and welcome back to the Yoga Healer Real Life Show. On today's show, Kate O'Donnell of the Everyday Ayurveda Cookbook. She's an author, she's a yoga teacher, she's a yogini to the core, and she's soon to release, actually it's not for a few months, the Sattvic Cookbook. So in today's conversation, we just talk about being normal, Ayurvedic yogic people in summer, and what we talk about is just a glimpse into our conversation as two pals hanging out, talking about Ayurveda and summer, and in the shift to a Sattvic experience, how the yogic path brings us to a more interconnected, more craving deep peace and alignment kind of experience. Up next, Kate O'Donnell of kateodonnell.yoga. Today's podcast is brought to you by my Living Ayurveda course. If you're curious about the power of Ayurvedic wisdom in your daily life, you're listening at the right time. As a Yoga Healer Real Life Show listener, you're invited to my preview training on the most progressive training available globally for living Ayurveda. To get in on my free video preview training, go to yogahealer.com/AYURVEDA. You will learn a ton. Okay, we're here. We're psyched. We're getting ready to talk about Ayurveda and summer and burnout and affordable and actually free wellness care. In Kate's book, the Ayurveda Cookbook, which I like to pull out a cookbook each season and just see, with Ayurveda cookbooks, especially this one where it's seasonal, and just see like, oh, right, there's some good inspiration. There's something about a physical cookbook. I'm really into online recipes too, but something about a physical cookbook where you get inspired when the pictures are beautiful and you're like, yes, that.
Yeah.
So thanks for making such a beautiful book. I want to try, I know I need to eat more beet. I talked to Dr. John Douillard last week and he was talking so much about the cholagogues and how beets clear all the excess heat from the liver and the gallbladder and all the stuff that gets overheated. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that part of the, like how you feel into how people get overheated and inflamed and pissy and irritated and too hot in their own blood in summertime?
Yeah. I mean, most of it that I see around here is in people eating foods that aggravate the heat, that increase the heat. So a lot of people, although they're having like a salad, they'll be having like this 16-ounce kombucha. They'll be putting all of this kind of like, spicy stuff or eating pizza. In the city, it's a lot harder to keep a good diet. So I think the biggest instigators are like the obvious things like alcohol and smoking and overworking.
And caffeine.
Yep, totally caffeine. Yeah, everybody's like walking around with the huge Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee around here. So it's the idea of like, just because a drink has ice in it doesn't mean that it cools your body. Just so kind of like getting alternative beverages going on, I feel like is pretty huge.
Yeah, and what about all the sugar water? Like So do you want to talk a little bit about like what caffeine and alcohol and tobacco and sugar are actually doing in the body and how that creates heat?
Well, I mean, something like smoking is a great example because it's like you feel it hot when it goes in your body, so it's something like caffeine. It's like if you look at the surface of your coffee, you can see the oil on it. And when you feel it go inside your body, you can feel like the acidity. Like how it kind of like increases your appetite, for example. So like when you're looking at different substances, it's like looking for the immediate effect on your body. You're usually going to feel like either an acid in the stomach. One thing I notice is if I drink caffeine or alcohol, my face gets oily right away. It's like I can feel it happening, And those are the kind of things that people can look for as they kind of increase the water and the fire elements in their body. They're going to feel like greasy. Like they'll notice like the scalp starts to get like more oily and there's more of a smell in the hair.
Yep.
And the pee, like you can totally tell if you're aggravating yourself because I call it hot pee. You start to get hot pee. Like I can feel the temperature of the urine starts to get hotter. If I did something like drink a big coffee, I noticed that right away, and I'm like, okay, got to get the game on, because if I let that keep going, and so many women that I know also really deal with kind of bladder infections or yeast infections in the summertime.
Right. And then there's
So
the
the hot
stinky sweat
like-
too, right? If you start noticing
Yep.
you've got like your soury, pungent.
Totally. Yes, totally. And it's just the increase of the fire and the water element in the body. So that's when I start looking at like, ooh, you know, foods that are really salty are going to increase the water and the fire. You know, anything that presents as acidic is going to totally, like the tomatoes are a tough one because they do come in season.
Yeah.
But right away, people are going to get like canker sores if they eat too many tomatoes.
Right.
You know,
Oh, you can feel it. My daughter's, she loves tomatoes and she's like, I can't have another bite. I can feel it on my tongue. I can feel the tingle on my tongue.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
so
when
that-
this goes on and people kind of are in denial, it's so funny. I keep wanting to talk about Fenway Park because I know you're in Boston and you think of everyone going to Fenway Park or the typical ballpark in the summer and they get the hot dog and the beer and then they get the French fries, and the fried foods are also so tough in summer.
True.
Right. And then they get some sugary treat after. And it's like heat. And then they're sitting out in the sun. And then the next day they wonder why they have a headache and a skin rash.
Yeah. Yep. Or diarrhea.
And so when this goes on and people keep building up heat in their body it's like sometimes I think by the end of summer, but now I think it's moving up just because in so many places it's hotter than it's been in the past. If we look at global warming and average temperatures rising, like the burnout from being overheated. Do you just want to talk a little bit about what's going on there in the body? And
yeah, you know, I think one thing we haven't really mentioned that is so important is stress and the heat that comes from cortisol and adrenaline. So I think that I noticed in my own body also that it's like the diet comes in as a very close second to stress for heating the body. And so the nerves start vibrating like a high tension bridge, you know, and you keep like stacking more and more cars on it. And there's all this traffic moving across the bridge and it's vibrating. And the body starts to actually overheat from the activity of the nerves.
yeah,
You know, and I think it can be a little hard to notice it because for the Ayurvedic mind, you're going to go right to Vata, but stress that's been hanging around for a little while, couple months or a year, you know, you're going to start to get inflamed, to get overheated, and to burn out from doing too much.
So it's more like Pitta and the Maja Dhatu. It's like Pitta and the level of nerves. And it's just frying the nerves.
Totally.
And so that's where you get that like short circuit syndrome, right? Where and everyone knows when you're in a short circuit, reactionary. Yeah. Yep.
Irritable.
I can't relate at all. Nope. Just kidding.
You should see Boston because it's such a cold climate. And then when we get our rare 90-degree day, I mean, people are honking and yelling and the doors are slamming and people are like, you know, because we're on the coast, it's really humid. So it's not only hot, it's also really humid. And people just I noticed the road rage. Like in August, people are pissed.
Oh gosh, coming back from the Cape. Oh, I know that. Right? It's like 2 hours and you're just sitting there and everyone's hot and they've had too much ice cream and they're bloated and Yeah. And what I notice in summer for me is the desire for transparency. Like if we have the digestive fire centered right in the center of the body, right? The Agni, the Chittara Agni in the center of the body. And all it wants to do, in my experience, is just have like clear gateways, no traffic, no congestion, just clear gateways out through the skin so that there's absolute transparency between the digestive fire and the skin. So in Ayurveda, we have Brajaka Pitta in the skin, right? We have Pachaka Pitta in the small intestine right there in that center of where Chittara Agni lives. And as far as I can notice, if there's just like a cool breeze running through, we're all good. And as soon as I pack on a little too much body weight or muscle mass, or I'm not hydrated enough, or I'm too salty so my blood's thick, or I'm too acidic because I've been doing things I shouldn't be doing too much. And like at that point, I feel imprisoned and overheated and edgy and irritable, and I make problems. I make problems for other people that make more problems for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find you get like you act or speak quickly? Like,
I'm highly reactionary. So what I have to do when I notice that start to happen is if I'm going to like write an email response or a text response or do a phone call, it's like I write it and then I rewrite it. And then usually I need to rewrite it one more time. And that whole process helps me digest some of my own acidity, like some of my own hyperreactivity. It actually helps, just like that, like deeper exhale, deeper inhale, being like, okay, what fire? Because that's the thing with fire is the spreading quality.
Yeah.
Right. So
true.
someone's pissed and then they piss off someone else and then they piss off someone else and then they, right. And soon it's like everyone's kind of honking their horns.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. I noticed one thing I've been doing around that is like, I'll have like a bunch of emails I need to respond to. And my tendency is to be a little like short in the emails. There's like no pleasantry, which sometimes in business is important, and it's like the inbox is getting full and like, I don't want to be there. I don't want to do it. So I step away, and that's because it used to be like, okay, it's 11. We're, yoga's done, teaching done. Okay, now it's email time. And so now it's actually like, I've had to realize that sometimes I need to like take a half an hour and take a walk or something and come back, or have some aloe juice and come back to the emails. And like, I just need that time to like take note of what I'm about to do and the potential for disaster.
So let's talk about that. I mean, chilling out. And when I think for a lot of people, when they look back at pictures of summer over the last, you can even go back to like Renaissance pictures or pictures in like the 16s, beautiful paintings in the 1700s. Like people are chilling out. They're at the water. The countryside was never that far from the city back when, right? And there's just this deep enveloping of green around the human mind. And for so many people, that backdrop is gone. And they're just, they're in a hot, dry, often dry or hot, humid atmosphere, and they're not breathing fresh air. They're not breathing that alkalized air that's coming off the leaves of green, these green leaves of lovely hydrated trees. And I don't want to paint this too idyllic of a situation, but to me, there's just a huge shift in culture, even from when I was a kid to, going to the lake every day in the summer and just playing, and right now, like even kids are like super scheduled with camps and driving here and traffic and this activity and that activity. And so what you just described about like, oh, I'm just going to not do something for a half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's my MO. Since writing this book, my stress levels reached like a height where I was having imbalances that were unfamiliar to me. And
pray tell, what were they? Tell me the flavor.
Well, it was rudges. It was an inability to do nothing. It was like, I'd have a day off and I wouldn't know what to do with myself. And it was like this sensation. And I know a lot of people feel this way.
Yeah.
The sensation of a so-called day off was like it was unavailable to me. Like I couldn't get there. And it was scary. And it went on for like a year. Like after I finished the book and handed it over, it was like a year of residue that I had to like, I took like 2 months and went to the beach a lot, and really just like, I didn't book workshops. I didn't do extra work on top of what I do every day. I had to really practice like I was my own little kid, I had to really talk to that part of myself and be like, Kate, you deserve a break. Like,
go have fun.
Yeah. Like take some time, do whatever the F you want. Yeah. And that became like my motto for a year. And I say that to clients sometimes. I'm like, listen, like, my recommendation for you is I want you to, and they're all like, oh no, what's she going to say?
Right.
And like, I want you to do whatever the F you want for 20 minutes. Every day. And it's like people are blown away by that.
Yeah. And then start to extend that and extend that and extend that and extend. Yeah. It's interesting. Like on my big whiteboard in my office right now, I have a few whiteboards, but on the really big one, in the middle is the word fun. And then it's like a lot of the words on there are on like ease, flow, allowing, right? Like receiving what's happening next instead of, like Rajas, instead of like moving something into action, actually like just receiving something flow and escorting it forward. Because it's, to me, we're in this place. It's like the planet's in this place. It's over, so we're heating up as much as we might be politically in denial of that. We have a lot of people that have burnt out their endocrine system and have all sorts of endocrine disorders, autoimmune disorders, right? We have inflammation everywhere, hyperacidity everywhere. Like we just have all of the signs that like humans do not know the feminine. They don't know the receptive, the watery, the not knowingness, the cloudiness of mind, instead of the like very clear action forward. And so to me, like this conversation, like how do all Ayurvedic practitioners start asking that question of like, do whatever the F you want. What is it that you want? Like, let's start to talk about and what do we know? Like in yoga philosophy, we have that question of like, what do you want? You're talking to the voice of Shakti. You're talking to the feminine flow of creation, which is watery. It's not this, even though it can come through like, this is what I want. It's like, can we receive that? Right? Can we receive that desire and then allow it to happen?
Yeah. It's a good point that you're pointing out the difference in how Shakti sounds when she speaks to us is different than how Rajas sounds. Right?
Oh yeah. Talk more about that.
It's like if we know the difference so for instance, when I suggest that my client do whatever they want for 20 minutes, and she says, oh, that's great. I've been looking for that 20 minutes to take a run every day. Like, perfect. That's what I want to do. And I say, okay, like, why do you want to run? We sort of break that down. And it comes to something like, well, I want to lose that extra 5 pounds. And it's not really coming from a place of pure enjoyment, where there's actually no agenda. So Shakti, like, she doesn't have an agenda, this is the goal. This is the result we're attached to. It's more like just that pure sensation of being alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the jogger, we ended up landing on a walk to the mailbox,
That's awesome.
because she wasn't ready to do nothing. And I was like, let's get the mail then, like
let's go accomplish the mail.
Well,
slowly.
You're noticing like nature.
Yeah.
And, so the point was just that her senses began to engage with the Shakti all around. Mm-hmm. And that's the voice that speaks with that sensation of its enjoyment, just aliveness, like becoming a part of it.
Yeah. And I think that word enjoy, or if we take enjoy and we make it enjoy, of like, there needs to be a remembering or a reconnection to what that baseline experience is, especially for those who have been in stress response for what seems like forever, that they don't even associate it with a stress response because it's just normal. Like you were saying, it's like Rajas is your operating system unless it's not, right? Like it's just, I'm putting words in your mouth, but it's like, unless you can tell the difference, it's more or less just controlling the system. Yeah. And so so then this quality of recollecting, like, what is that experience of being enjoy and how little it takes to feel purnatva, like full, just like full as the full moon, as watery and full and complete as the full moon, that's just a natural state of being, that when we stop the pushing against reality, to make something happen.
Yeah, it's there all the time. It's just a matter of shifting the attention to it, so that's what the walk to the mailbox is for, just to shift the attention to an activity with no goal, no agenda. And that's where life begins to speak to us in that space, that we've created. But space is scary. Like the experience I had that year after the book. I mean, I've never been so like scared and insecure in my own skin. And it was just like, I couldn't put my finger on like why or what, or, it was really just like a stress response that was trying to unravel.
Yeah.
I was surprised how long it took to undo.
We were talking about books before the call, and you mentioned Dr. Claudia Welch, and I know she talks about her like 6 months on the couch. She just lays on the couch. And I think this is such a good thing for other people to hear, you know, it's just how, like, this is how people that are really in touch with Ayurvedic wisdom, like, this is the lived reality of making projects, you know, like doing projects, doing things, moving things forward. And then the reset, then that other side of the pulsation, that other side of the yin yang symbol, right? Where we have the opposite of like not knowing, drifting, unwinding, being like falling in love or in joy with prana shakti, with like the life force energy itself, without it needing to be an object or a project or a person. And how this
trust.
To me, that's
Trusting.
water element brings up trust like no other element.
Yeah. I found that, you know, that's especially like, I feel like in our profession, there's this real reliance recently on social media as a way to sort of like be successful, you know, get the word out.
Yeah.
And it has this energy of like all consuming, you know, that I find that people are all the time engaging, you know, with getting the word out on their social platform. And for myself, you know, I have struggled with that. And especially, you know, I did all this work, I create this book, and then it's like, well, Kate, are you going to get behind this book? You know, come on, like, let's do some blogging and posting. I needed to lie on the couch.
Yeah.
You know, so what I really had to do was like, just trust that what I had done was enough, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like every day. Yeah. Every day, like what I've done is good. Like, nice work, pat on the back, like time to rest now. And when I wrote the second book, I was like, I'm not doing that again. I do not want to end up again like I did the first time.
Yeah.
You know? So it was this real experiment. It was really fun and kind of cool, frustrating at times. But so I worked on sort of like pulsing, you know, I would like pulse into the work and then come out of it until I felt like my high suspension bridge kind of slow down.
Nice.
As many days, and that was a trust exercise, like as long as that takes. Sometimes it was like I wouldn't work on the book for like a month, 2 months. And it was just like, hey, you know, we got time. The book's going to get done at some point. Like it's going to get done, wants to get done.
Right.
And
it's its own thing.
And I moved through the experience like that. And it was a lot better. I'm a lot less tweaked this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That very much parallels my experience between Body Thrive and now writing Awake Living, and how I'm no longer willing to push something through.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Kate and I talk about what we eat in summer, how we prepare food, and in the yogic path of simplification for really greater levels of subtle complexity and deeper peace. So all that up next. You want to feel amazing from the inside out. You want to look attractive because it attracts the right people in your life and enables deeper connection while inspiring others to take better care of themselves. You want to wake up light, energized, excited for the day. You want to know your metabolism and cooperate with your own digestive type. You want deep, easy, restful sleep that leaves you refreshed for the day. You want to regenerate your cells and not fall into the scientifically proven habits of stagnation and degeneration. In fact, you want to get better, smarter, wiser, and in deeper body integrity as you cycle around the sun each year. You want to thrive. Ayurveda holds the key. Let's get on it. Talk to my team. Go to yogahealer.com/living Ayurveda. LIVINGAYURVEDA. That's what my learning is. And yes, it took me 44 freaking years. Like when I go back to some of like the greats of the past who died at age 35, I'm like, how did they figure all that out by then? You know, I'm like, I'm 44 and I'm like, finally, I'm no longer willing to like push a project forward. You know, it can't be that operating system, because it's just like when we're in that rajasic outward moving fiery stage, it's like it's the like increases like, but it's also like the energy in which something is done perpetuates that energy into the world. Whatever what's the sutra for that? Do you know? I don't know, but I'm sure there's one.
I'm sure there is.
Well, when we come upon it, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yes.
And so
I was teaching about abhyasa yesterday.
Okay, go ahead.
So practice, the idea of practice, and that when you say the word practice, according to the Yoga Sutras, there's right behind it is vairagya. So the unattachment to the result of the practice. Like it's the Bhagavad Gita, it's the whole point of yoga, so we throw around in the yoga community, we throw around this word, I did my practice today, or I've been practicing for this many years. And it's like to truly understand what that word means. And that practice implies like being able to not practice, being able to rest, and that it's the attachment, it's the vairagya that's making the rajas in all of us. And it's a cultural phenomenon that we're a goal-oriented society.
Yeah.
So how do we learn how to not be attached to the fruits of our actions on a daily basis?
Yeah. Well, and the trusting in the joy of the creative process, trusting in the joy. I mean, for me, I need to trust into the joy of like the teamwork process as well. It's not just my own personal creative process anymore. There's so much involved with like what we're creating together as an organization.
That's awesome.
It's challenging. And then I soften into it and it's like, okay, who do I need to become next? And in that I could like the center again drops out and have the transparency. Whereas when it's coming from my will, that's all third chakra, right? So that just like flames that fire, and then I get overheated and tweaky and end up destroying things instead of co-creating kindly.
Yes, live and learn, right?
Live and learn. So that's my sense is like this. And the reason I really wanted to get into this is when we look at burnout and when we look at summer and inflammation and all this stuff that happens, we can just see this, we can see this buildup, these external factors like diet. But then, like you said, like stress is number one. When we look at the internal, like how are we orienting to the moment? And we can just see that we're just perpetuating this energy of heat that's going to generate more heat, which eventually burns things up. Or, whether it's relationships, whether it's projects, whether, it's like it burns up also the really, like you were saying, it like starts to burn in the level of the nerve. And that's really not good, because if we look at what's at the other end of that, how it starts to burn up the immune system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be like I almost feel like the number one summer tool is recreation, outdoor recreation. As opposed to like eat this or drink that. It's just in resting. I think taking that time to enjoy is the number one thing. Totally.
I'm down with you. So let's talk about that, because we are also wanting to hit a little bit into the commercialization of Ayurveda and how wellness can seem like something for the wealthy, and how it's so intrinsically not that way, and how especially as like those of us who are becoming the voices of Ayurveda in this in this more Western yoga world, how we need to really make a stand here for the deeper knowledge. And I mean, many of you know that I eat a lot of things that are free, like the invasive weeds. And like right now, my dehydrator, between my dehydrator and the counter that's around my dehydrator, there's at least 10 pounds of dried invasive weeds getting ready to be turned into a green powder that I'll use into, herbal teas and all sorts of things. And like yesterday, I had just a moment, and I ended up in a patch of fireweed, which is it's a pungent green. Really great for like late winter stuff, often of just like when people get that like phlegm and need to clear stuff out. And so I harvested maybe 2 pounds of it. Took me maybe 3 minutes in this huge field of wildweeds of fireweed. So I'm like connecting with the plant. I'm just in it. I'm under this gorgeous aspen grove. I'm waiting for some people, so there's not this feeling of I should be doing something else. And then after I harvest the fireweed, I just like lay down under the aspens and listen to them. Their leaves make this rustling sound that is divine. I actually recorded some. I will put the aspen leaf recording on this podcast. Nice.
That's nice. Yeah.
So that we can get a sense of like that this is the essence of the summer experience that our physiologies are craving and need to thrive.
Yeah. 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 And, in an urban environment, I go to the farmer's market and I stand like amidst the vegetables. And I try to have that similar experience of just like absorbing the pranas from the vegetables. And that's, to me, that feels awesome. It feels like it brings my food full circle, and I know what's in season, and like I know the quality. It's like the qualities of the Massachusetts summer are present in the abundance, that's set up. And it's very clear, like, oh, this week, boom, the zucchinis are they're here, and we watch them get bigger, and then we watch them get smaller, oh my God, the winter squashes already. And it's like, in an urban environment, that's like where I go, and that's how I find that same kind of experience. And I bring home this, like, I buy like a ton of fresh herbs and all the whatever's in season, because it goes so fast here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 3 weeks and it's over. So I like bring home a bunch of that and, make a chutney, make a soup, like, and I just eat the crap out of like mint, zucchini. And I feel like that's how, on a physical level, that's how I get that transparency in my body that you're describing, is by eating like a buttload of whatever's in season.
Yeah.
I find all these greens and these fresh herbs and the astringent vegetables, they all have this like really clearing effect.
Yeah.
And there's so much of them around for such a short period of time. I just like buy a bunch and like make them into something. And that time that I have in my kitchen with all that stuff around me, like reminds me of your description of being in the field, under the tree.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because we can get it looking at a cloud. I mean, it's everywhere. I love it what you're saying too, because to me, there's just such a huge misconception. I remember too, I'm just going to throw Deepak Chopra under the rug here for it. But when they came out, when the Chopra Center came out with that Ayurveda cookbook 20 years ago or whatnot, I was reading it. And it was like, for breakfast, you should have this. And for lunch, you should have this. And for dinner, you should have, like, there's way too much complexity in in the menus that they set out. I'm like, first of all, you need a cook. Unless that's all you're doing for yourself, because to do those meals would take way too long. But to me, it missed the core of Ayurvedic wisdom, which is like, you eat, which is in abundance outside your door, period.
Yep.
Like that's how you thrive. Like, you are your ecosystem. You're in connection, whether it's through the farmer's market or for me, between the thistle patch, between me and my neighbor's yard, right? Like, whatever it is, you just attune into abundance. Right. And you just bring that through you, knowing that it's got a season. And that's the beauty of it. Like, life is ephemeral, right? Like those zucchinis are only going to be that big for that short a period of time, and then that's going to change. And like my mint's having a heyday, and it'll last kind of, it's got its little season, and that's it, and that we just get to be in that thrive. I mean, when I hear so many people talk about what abundance is and stuff, I just hear way too few ecological connections where the person's having the experience of that in their own ecology, right? And I just want to bring back to one of the ways when I haven't had a body of water nearby and I've wanted to experience the coolness of summer is I just use a foot bath. Like, I have this bucket I think I paid $4 for it about 20 years ago. I got it at the local hardware store. And it was like this little bucket with this little lid. It wasn't a bucket. It's more of like a rectangular shaped plastic container, Rubbermaid container. One of those. They cost $4 20 years ago. And I actually bought 20 of them because I would bring them into yoga class, and we'd form an assembly line from the back sink that run this cool water. And we just like pass it. And so that everyone in the class after class could put their feet in cool water. We'd pass around some essential oils, maybe a little bit of lavender or rose, or just people could choose what to put in. Some people wanted like tea tree. They just wanted to disinfect themselves, Yeah. Fair enough. No harm, no foul. Choose your own scent, and just sit. And it's so simple, right? I mean, what does that cost? If you leave out the essential oils, it's free.
Yeah.
You know? And to me, it's like, this is just what reminds us of like, chill. It's okay to chill.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Time for a foot bath. Oh, getting irritated. And it's sometimes I think it's just about shifting the energy. Even if you just got the bucket out and sat down with it, like, you're halfway there. You change change the momentum of that moment that might have been moving in a rajas direction, by having the intelligence, like it's time for a foot bath. Or it's time to like go buy a bunch of mint, make a chutney.
So I'm gonna go make your mint, some of that mint cilantro coconut chutney. Do you want to tell people how to make that real quick or something like that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the fun thing about it is that you can use different herbs. You can kind of use anything you want. You can use all mint. You can use all cilantro. Half and half is tasty. And you just got to like buy like 2 bunches of each. Or if it's growing, you just grab like, 2, let's say like, I mean, if you really want to go for it, I'd say like 2 football size bunches, of the herb. Rinse it in, just put it in a bucket, let the dirt sink. I feel like that's an important step, actually, because I had a cooking class recently where there's a lot of dirt in the food.
Cilantro can get so dirty.
I know.
I know.
So you really have to kind of soak it, you don't just rinse it under the tap, because that could be a bad scene for your teeth. So I put it in the bath of the water and let just a couple minutes while I gather the other ingredients. So, and it doesn't have to be an exact science. Like the way that I usually make it is in either, you can totally use a blender. It'll just be thinner. People who have like a Vitamix or a food processor, it's a little easier and it'll come out a little thicker. But all I had in my kitchen for years was just like an old school blender from the drugstore. It totally works. They might have to add like, you can add for liquids, you could add just plain water, you can add coconut milk, you can add more lemon if you like it. And people who get aggravated by lemon, it'll work with lime if you make the chutney with lime. So you just like rinse your herbs, throw them in the vat, in the carafe of whatever you're making, a handful of shredded coconut, and like squeeze, let's say for 2 football size herbs, you want to squeeze like 2 lemons right in there. And another thing to note is when you're squeezing the lemon over the carafe, make sure to put a strainer under it. I recently had a student be like, "Oh man, I had all these seeds in my chutney." I was like, "Dude, what'd you do?" And so I had to just remind her, like, "Oh, if you want to squeeze it right over the thing, just put a little tea strainer or a colander or something over the carafe, and then you just squeeze your lemon or your lime right in there." And I've done things, if I want to add protein, you can add, if you make almond milk, you can add the almond meal, like a good sized handful into the chutney, and it'll mix right in there, and it works. It's a good way to use that almond pulp. Great. A little bit of salt. Sometimes I put a little coriander powder, a little fresh coriander powder if I'm in the mood. And I'm a fan of, even in the summer, I do use black pepper. I've got a little type digestion, so I'll still put black pepper in it. And that's like the taste for the individual. And you just blend it up, and you can make it as thick or as thin as you want.
And what do you have your chutney with in summer?
To be honest and incredibly boring, khichdi. Like even in the summer, I make khichdi, and I use, right now I'm using quinoa and the split mung bean. And I find that to be super light, and it doesn't overheat me. It doesn't, I love that description of transparency. So it doesn't cloud or gunk up my system, my whole body. So I've been in the habit of just making that khichdi with the split mung and the quinoa. And I put coconut oil instead of ghee in the summertime. I switch that out, and it feels like way lighter to me. And I'll, instead of using like cumin or ajwain or the warming things that I use in the winter, I reach for coriander and fennel, and always fresh ginger. And sometimes I make a raita, like when I'm at the farmer's market, I'll make like just grate a big cucumber into the fresh yogurt, little salt and pepper. It's so easy. And really, like today, it was actually a little warm, and I was eating the khichdi right before this talk, and I was like, thank God I have the raita today, because it just like cools everything right down. So that's like my go-to. Honestly, I'll go between like the raita for a couple of days, and then I'll make the chutney, have that for a couple of days. Just keep going back and forth like that. Yeah.
Well, and so much of this too is like, just to kind of go back to that Chopra Center cookbook and like the really, like when I see what most people eat, it's so complex and there's so much variation day to day to day to day. And to me, like my life is fairly, I mean, it's really pretty simple, but mentally there's a certain amount of complexity and I like it that way. Like I'm a pitta kapha, I'm very strong pitta mental, and I thrive on a certain level of big problems to solve. But I don't want to waste energy on not being transparent physiologically, right? I don't want to waste all this energy on digesting a really complex menu because then that eclipses my ability to solve bigger problems. And I'm way more interested in the dharma of solving bigger problems than I am into having just a lot of, I mean, the complexity that I see in people's diets. It's like, it's complexity on all levels, from the digestive level, obviously, and what the physiology has to deal with in terms of like this meal being Chinese and the next meal being Thai and then the next meal being, Italian, and, none of it seasonal or whatnot, or very seasonal, and it's just like when people think like I need to have this different menu this week, it's like, not really, not so much. Like figure out what works for your body. Buy seasonal food to make ingredients like that morph with that kind of flow, and then like be somewhat repetitive. And I also go to like just the baseline, it's like the baseline foods and then the celebration foods, right? So I don't want to have celebration foods all the time because then I'm not, again, that I don't have the energy, like I don't have the mental capacity, I don't have the flow for the bigger parts of life. I'm just putting all that energy into digestion.
Yeah. Yeah. And digestive disturbance is really distracting. Like who wants to be distracted on a regular basis? That's my main reason, similar to yours, of not wanting to eat complicated food. Because then I'm going to be like thinking about my gut, for like 6 hours, like trying to like help it out. And it's like, that's not what I'm here to do, Yeah. So I find that people's thoughts about needing a lot of complexity in the diet it's really just conditioning. It's not the truth of the appetite. Because once people simplify, like I do cleanses, like you do, once people eat a simple diet for even just a week, their body starts to crave that.
Yeah.
They're just like, wow, they're craving like khichdi or vegetables, and it's pretty obvious when you step away from the celebration foods how your body actually prefers just like simple kind of a baseline diet. Throw something like exciting in there, once a week or not even.
Yeah. It's such a different way to live. So talk a little bit. So you've been writing your next book, and and just in closing, I just want you to talk a little bit about sattva and the topic and how it came to you and what's going down with it.
Halfway through writing the first cookbook, I kept, as I work with people, I just noticed that more than 50% of what needs to be modified is the attitude around food. Just like I just said, people's ideas about needing complexity, they disappear. It's some conditioned response that we have from something in our past or something cultural that makes us think we're supposed to eat all this different stuff all the time. So it was like the role that the mind was playing in people's relationship to food, how they chose their diet, and how they sort of moved in the direction or gravitated towards certain groups of foods. It was so much coming from the mental space, rather than like something really simple like, oh, you're pitta aggravated, you're craving, margaritas and salsa. I found like that would happen 1 out of 5 times, but the other 4, it was this like total mental kind of a thing. So I was like, oh, we gotta talk about cultivating sattva, cultivating the clarity in the mind that allows us to easily, without any big story, make the choice that benefits us. So then we're all able to move in the direction of our own dharma and feel like we're happy to be here, we're doing what we're supposed to do. Because that's the picture of health in Ayurveda. It's like being connected. So I found that especially in the environment, the urban environment, in this day and age, I just was like, wow, it's all about the mind. And that is a whole nother book. So I barely talk about the three gunas in the first book. I was halfway through, I made that call.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to make the call.
Yeah,
That's another book.
I told my editor too. I'm like, oh, it's book number 2, man. It's already coming. So we called it Ayurvedic Cooking for a Calm, Clear Mind.
Oh, nice.
Just real simple, just like calm, clear. I think those are the 2 things that most people want.
Yeah. Need.
And
want.
Need. And there's a big component in the book about the Sattvic lifestyle. So how do we approach food? Something like sitting down. When just like real
mixing it up there, Kate. Mixing it up.
Yep. So I just put like a lot of just like I did in the first book, real simple, like down to earth kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which was challenging in a way because the topic of sattva is esoteric. So I was just really like, it's for the same audience as the first book.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be like real, like, practical, get right in there and like grab the food, make the food, eat the food, notice the effects. So the recipes it's, basically a sattvic diet. And so what does that mean?
I love it. I do. And it's so needed. I mean, I know when I was first introduced to the mental constitutions and the Rajasic mental constitution and the Tamasic mental constitution and the Sattvic mental constitution, I was like, in some way, I was like that. Sattvic, it sounded at the time, it was probably in my late 20s. I was like, that sounds so freaking boring. And now I'm like, that is so what I want, because at a certain point, there's a maturation where we get that there's bigger fish to fry. Mm-hmm. And if we're ever gonna, or like with on peeling the onion, there's an inner core, but there's that gold nugget of the human experience. And we want that more than what we've got. And then we make those choices of like, okay, I've got to simplify on every element and every level of my life until I start to hit this essential core where there's more connectivity. There's more consciousness. There's an easier flow of prana. There's more directness of tejas. There's like more just light coming through. There's a deep well of trust that opens gateways that otherwise are never going to be opened. And then there's more of the field of connectivity that nourishes everything. And it's like at some point we just want that more than anything else. And at that point, this book is like the next book on your reading list.
Mm-hmm. And I think to me in writing the book, one of the most interesting things about sattva is that one of the signs and also effects of sattva increasing in your mind is the desire for everything you just described. So it's like you go from feeling like, oh, that's so boring. I want to, go to this Grateful Dead show. Yeah. The desire starts to bubble up for the connection. Yeah. And it's undeniable. And that's how you know you're on the right path when you want that.
Yeah. That's
it's not
so
like
cool.
You just magically wake up and like, oh, I'm there. I'm sattvic. It's like you start to want it. And then you're like, yeah, now we're on the path,
Yeah. And it's so all pervasive. Like I want that in conversation, right? I want that deep, like you and I, we get on that. It was funny. This is what our second or third time talking to each other, but there's a depth of intimacy. There's a depth of connection. There's a depth of ease, of trust that like, I want to know more from you because I trust your wisdom. I trust it's lived because I can feel it. It's not like blind trust. There's a energetic in that field. And then in the same way, like I want that same, in my schedule, I have massive open spaces in my schedule, and I underschedule my kid because we like spontaneity, we don't want to have a lot going on. And sometimes kids get in this thing where they're with this friend and then there's this next thing happening and this next thing happening and we just pull it. We're just like, we actually are full. Like the Pranatva cannot go this balloon's going to pop. So we're just going to savor this fullness for a while and let it slowly dissolve into the next thing. We're not going to pop it.
That is so smart. Like if we all did that, we would be a lot less stressed out, a lot less inflamed and irritated.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to go make me some of I'm just going to pull. So for those of you who are watching this on the video, check out oops, I lost my place, but I want to make what is it? Ananda cocoa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In the treats section towards the end.
Is that right? Oh, yeah. Here it is. Here it is.
183.
Bam. That's what I'm having. Me and Andy will make this.
Yeah. When the berries come, that's what I do with them.
So good.
So good.
So good to talk to you, Kate. We'll talk more about the sattvic conversation in the future.
Excellent. I'll look forward to that.
And have a chill time in Boston. And what is it? B-Town? What is the nickname?
Beantown.
Beantown.
Yeah, because I think Boston baked beans.
Right. Boston baked beans.
Are so healthy.
I'm so glad you're here and listening. If you missed the Dr. John Douillard episode on summer that's had rave reviews, super helpful for a lot of people. I just want to say I was at the gym, my daughter's gymnastics studio, and one of her teachers was complaining about like, oh, summer, I'm itchy, my skin, I'm dry, my dog's skin is dry. Like, this is so hard, such a challenging time of year. And I just want to say, like, the reason we did these episodes with Kate and with John, to me, for someone who's like lived Ayurveda for close to 2 decades now, or about half my life, I forget how easeful it is to live in alignment with the seasons when you know what to do, when you're moisturizing your skin with coconut oil and you're eating the cooling diet and you're exercising in a way that's optimal for that season, and all the little things that the people that have studied Ayurveda and live Ayurveda that we know and that we do. And it also made me realize like how simple the solutions are when people don't know and they're uncomfortable in a certain season. So if you're hearing someone like bitch and moan, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say those words here, but if someone that's just really uncomfortable in their own skin in a season, have them tune in to Ayurveda. I mean, really, the solutions are so easy, and the experience of connectivity and balance and not being at odds with our ecosystem is so important that we as humans thrive, and that we help each other by giving each other access to some of this information. That's all I had to say about that. Have a wonderful summer. Namaste.
Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Kate Stillman. Yoga Healer.